Welcome to Purely Prabhupada, Ancient Truths for the Upliftment of the Modern World. My name is Alexis. Here with me again is Kamra Devi Dasi, also known as Dr. Karen Silverstein. In this video, we'll be discussing the nature of the material world, the spiritual world, and how the literature is given to us by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, offer us the education so that we can choose which world we want to live in. So, in our last discussion, you mentioned how it's possible to rejoin God in His kingdom. Do you want to explain to us a little about His kingdom, the spiritual world, in relation to where we are in this universe?
The artwork on the cover of Srimad-Bhagavatam, first canto, part 1, very nicely depicts the correlation between the spiritual world and the material world. The material world is also part of God's creation, but it's depicted as maybe 1/4 of the entire creation, whereas the other 75%, or sometimes described as 90% of the creation, is the spiritual kingdom. So in this little corner of the universe, even those who are in the top 1% are in the bottom 10%.
What are the characteristics of this small percentage of creation, this material world that we find ourselves in?
Even though this is a very small proportion, very small percentage of the entire creation, it includes all the galaxies, all the universes, anything that science knows about, all the frequencies. So anything that we can perceive in this world is part of this material world. The characteristics of this place is that joy is temporary. Any pleasure we may find is temporary. And a lot of times, pleasure means the absence of pain. In other words, why would there have to be a heating and cooling industry if we weren't suffering heating and cooling anomalies? There's the MO, the modus operandi, is that we're always creating pain for ourselves and others in this material world. We're envious of someone else's good fortune. We're always hankering to have something we don't have. We're judging our success on how much we possess. In this material world, there are higher planetary systems and lower planetary systems. The lower planets means that there's less ability to enjoy the senses. There's less pleasure. The higher planets, like what is called the heavens, afford a greater ability for material enjoyment. They're not a place of eternality, as is sometimes misunderstood, because even though the opportunity for enjoyment is very, very great, there's still death. So it's not the highest goal to go to heaven, because that's still in the material realm. Our highest goal is to approach the spiritual kingdom. It's a much nicer opportunity.
If the spiritual world is a better proposition, can you please tell us more about it?
The spiritual world is comprised of also many different planets, and it's self-effulgent. There's no need of the sun, the moon, electricity. There's no envy at all in the spiritual world. Everybody's always pushing each other towards Krishna. You serve Krishna, you do something nice. Oh, you're such a valuable member of our community. There's full respect, there's full honoring, there's no envy. Everyone's just happily aligned in service to God. This is the nature of the spiritual world. There's no time factor. Time is conspicuous by its absence. And everyone is situated in eternality, in knowledge, in transcendental bliss. And it's very important to know of the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada gives so much description of the spiritual world in his literatures. The spiritual world's our real home. It's our real roots. It's our real nature. And so it's very, very important to have the education as to the nature of the spiritual world.
That's so beautiful. There's no time factor. Everyone's full of bliss and knowledge. Most people haven't heard of this description before.
It's not surprising because it's not widely available. Other than the Vedic literatures, the books that Srila Prabhupada gave us, there isn't anywhere to find this information. Not in the highest institutions of learning can you find this, not in any of the universities. The universities, Prabhupada made a comment one time that even in the biggest universities, there's no department for even telling what's the difference between a dead body and a living body. Just certain basic sciences are not covered in the university system. The scientists don't have access to this information because any of their testing modalities, any of their investigative procedures are limited by the nature of the material world. They're limited in frequency. They're totally limited in scope by the material nature. Their minds are limited. They're trying to discover information by taxing their brains, by thinking about this and possibilities of that. And so their minds are limited. What the scientists don't understand and what people in general don't understand is these books are a gift from personalities who are already self-realized, who are beyond the scope of the mind, who understand by experience the nature of the absolute truth, the nature of the spiritual world. And these personalities are not limited by the contrivances of the mind. So this education is very, very important, because without this education, we can't make proper choices in our own lives and in our own destiny.
You're right. People are presented with so many choices: clothing, food, entertainment, but it doesn't seem that they're presented with any spiritual choices. How does this affect everyone?
By our nature, we are spiritual beings, and we came to this world because of some mood anomaly, something that just didn't fit in with the purity of the spiritual world of God's kingdom, some envy. And we come to this world, and the coverings are very thick, and the coverings are actually very seductive. And that makes it difficult to uncover, to reclaim our real nature. So in this world, there are apparently, as you mentioned, many choices. Choices regarding our social life, economic choices, political choices, surgical choices, so many different things. But none of these choices make us permanently happy. None of these choices help us to reclaim and uncover our spiritual nature. So we may feel that we're being set free by our choices. So many ways of expression. But the happiness and the sense of freedom is temporary at best. And it's always an illusion. So these choices that we have in this world, none of them make for permanent happiness. None of them are choices that, again, enable us to reclaim and uncover our spiritual nature.
From what we've discussed, it's clear that Srila Prabhupada's books offer a whole world of spiritual understanding that hasn't been available before.
You're absolutely right. Except for the literatures purely presented by Srila Prabhupada, there's no complete information of the spiritual world anywhere. We have a choice to make. We can choose to either stay in this material world with all its frustrations, or return to the spiritual world, the place of unlimited pleasure in association with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all pleasure. And in actuality, this is the most important choice we'll ever have to make. And we can't make this choice without full knowledge. This knowledge is available through Srila Prabhupada's books at purelyprabhupada.com.
Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss this with us. I know we all look forward to hearing more at Purely Prabhupada.
If you are interested in the subject matter of this video and would like to learn more, please visit purelyprabhupada.com. Ancient Truths for the Upliftment of the Modern World.